Administration. The time is now 9:09 a.m. on Thursday, March 18, 2021, and I'm calling to order the sixth and final performance oversight hearing of the committee for the FY 20 and 21 to date. Today marks the committee's final performance oversight hearing for the year. Over the course of our hearings, we have heard from dozens of public witnesses and government representatives regarding service delivery and policy implementation by the Office of the City Administrators, the district major housing agency, including the Rental Housing Commission and the Real Property Tax Commission. We also examined the work of the Department on Aging and Community Living. Today, we will focus on the Executive Office of the Mayor, the Office of Senior Advisor, the Office of Legal Counsel, and conclude the hearing with discussions with the Real Estate Commission and the Board of Real Estate Appraisers. The district government is emerging from an unprecedented year, as we all know. I am very pleased by the way the government agencies under the jurisdiction of this committee have performed to deliver vital services to our seniors, to keep people housed and not put out of our homes anyone in the middle of this pandemic. Still, as we know, we have a long way to go as we recover from the economic setback that has devastated many of our small businesses and restaurants and transform, at least temporarily, our downtown and many of our neighborhoods. Our hearings have shown that we have an opportunity not only to come back from the pandemic, but to come back better. As we explored with the director of the Department of Housing and Community Development on Monday of this week, we are on track to meet the mayor's affordable housing production goal of 12,000 new affordable housing units by the year 2025. I challenge the district government to not only meet it, but to exceed it. DHCD, the housing department, also has a key role to play in determining how to use our federal relief funds to keep people housed, while keeping providers whole and reducing the burden of a potential flood of eviction cases on our court system. As I said to Director Donaldson and Director Newland of the DACL, or the Department on Aging and Community Living, the work that lies ahead is going to be the most important work that they have ever undertaken. The Mayor's Rental Housing Strike Force will also have important recommendations to make towards these goals. We have an opportunity to put policies in place that will increase housing affordability opportunities in every ward in the coming years. We also have an opportunity to provide more housing for persons minimum wage jobs so that they too can remain and be a part of the communities of our city. For that part, the housing DC Housing Authority has done an admirable job of vaccinating senior citizens and has put forth a plan to continue to improve the conditions of public housing. With the potential of additional federal funding, we may, as a city, have the opportunity to receive additional federal choice housing vouchers. Meeting the needs of very low income individuals and families at 30% of AMI and below, and households and individuals and our homeless families must continue to be our highest priority as a city, even as we fashion relief for landlords and tenants impacted by COVID. I am grateful that the mayor's chief of staff and the deputy mayor for planning and economic development, John Filcecchio, has agreed to appear before this committee today to present testimony on behalf of the executive office of the mayor. And I'm looking forward to having a good discussion with him this morning. We will also hear from Beverly Perry, representing the Office of Senior Advisor, and Eugene Adams from the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel. Following our review of these executive offices, we will continue the hearing with the review of the Rental Real Estate Commission and the Board of Real Estate Appraisers. At this time, I'll recognize any of my colleagues that may have joined us. Do we have anyone?
We do not.
All right, so then we'll move forward. Thank you. Let me quickly review the agencies that are before us today. The Executive Office of the Mayor's mission is to serve the public by supporting the mayor in governing, including constituent engagement and media relations. The EOM, as it's commonly referred to, provides district agencies with vision and policy direction and provides agencies with the leadership support and oversight to implement specific policy goals and objectives, including building pathways to the middle class through an improved education system, safe and clean neighborhoods, better job opportunities, and long-term investments in the city's infrastructure. The agency's FY21 approval budget was $18.075 million, and it is an office of 115 employees or FTEs. I understand that there is a public witness for the Executive Office of the Mayor. And so I'll ask the staff to please call our public witness in and receive their testimony this morning.
There's one public witness, Councilmember Bonds, Casey Anderson, representing the Council for Court Excellence. Organizations have 5 minutes to testify. The timer will be on Mr. Stevens' screen.
We're happy to have her testimony this morning. Is she here?
Yes.
Yes, Councilmember.
Okay, all right, very good. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman Bonds and other members of the committee. My name is Casey Anderson, and like it was stated earlier, I'm a policy analyst at the Council for Court Excellence. Please note that per our policy, no judicial members of CCE participated in the formulation or approval of this testimony. I'm here today to present the recommendations of the District Task Force on Jails and Justice regarding the Clemency Board, which is housed under the Executive Office of the Mayor. 3 years ago, DC passed the Clemency Board Establishment Act of 2017, creating the district's first ever Clemency Board. This board is extraordinarily important to our residents. Unlike the 50 states where a person convicted of a state offense can request clemency from the governor, the mayor of the District of Columbia does not possess the authority to grant clemency to people convicted in DC. Only the President of the United States can do that. We have no way of knowing how many people incarcerated under the DC Code have applied for clemency through the federal system, but we do know that they represent about 2.4% of the Federal Bureau of Prisons population, but only account for 0.037% of the Federal Bureau of Prisons clemency grants. Only one person convicted of a DC Code offense has ever been granted clemency. We know that the district's incarcerated population is overwhelmingly Black, and 95% of the people convicted of DC Code offenses in the BOP are Black. So getting DC's Clemency Board up and running is both a racial justice issue and a local control priority. Understanding the importance of getting DC's Clemency Board up and running, the task force recommended that the district immediately begin operations of the local Clemency Board in their 2019 Phase 1 report, Jails and Justice, A Framework for Change. We are heartened to see that the district's Clemency Board has been meeting since August 2020, and in that time has selected a chairperson, drafted and adopted bylaws, and adopted a work plan. CCE is also glad to see that the Clemency Board is receiving assistance from the Howard University School of Law's Reentry Clinic on drafting regulations and an application form. During Phase 2 of the task force's work, the Committee on Local Control developed a detailed implementation timeline for the district's Clemency Board, which can be found in the task force's Phase 2 report, Jails and Justice, Our Transformation Starts Today. The timeline spanned from September 2020 to July 2021, and as of today, the Clemency Board has accomplished several of the items the task force recommended be completed in 2020, including drafting internal policies and regulations. The task force also recommended that between September and November 2020, the Clemency Board should develop a system for managing and tracking applications and publishing outcomes, draft MOUs with other agencies, and work with the Corrections Information Council to plan the dissemination of information about clemency eligibility and application procedures to all individuals convicted of DC Code offenses in BOP custody, among other recommendations. Based on the information we've received, some but not all of this has been accomplished to date. For this past winter, the task force recommended that the Clemency Board publish public notice of rulemaking, finalize, publish, and publicize the clemency application, schedule recurring meetings for reviewing applications, and develop a meeting plan. On behalf of the task force, we urge the Clemency Board and its support staff to complete any of the above action items that have not yet been completed as soon as possible in order to ensure that it is able to review and send the first set of recommendations for clemency to the President of the United States by summer 2021. When its plan was developed in fall 2020, the task force set a pace for what it determined to be a realistic target for beginning to receive initial applications as early as March through June 2021. However, it is clear that this timeline will have to be adjusted in light of the progress made to date. And we believe it is important for this committee to understand which steps remain and how quickly each can be completed to allow the Clemency Board to begin its operations in earnest and start considering applications. Members of the task force, as well as CCE, stand ready to support the district and the Clemency Board in successfully completing the steps outlined in the task force's Phase 2 report. Further, we urge the district to provide the resources and support necessary to ensure that DC's Clemency Board sends its first set of recommendations to the President of the United States by July 2021. We appreciate the Council's efforts to make sure people convicted of DC Code offenses have meaningful access to clemency and moving DC one step further to local control of our criminal justice system. My full remarks can be found in my submitted testimony. Thank you for your time, and I am pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and thank you for reminding our government of the importance of this process. We will certainly query the Chief of Staff, who will be appearing momentarily before us, as to where we are with the implementation of Phase 2, items in particular. And we'll see how we can get these numbers moving further. 2.4% of those that are incarcerated, and then I think you said 1 point, I didn't catch that number. The percentage of, yes, the percentage that actually apply for clemency.
0.037%.
Oh.
And to date, we've only heard of one person convicted of a DC Code offense who has successfully been granted clemency.
Okay, all right. So we'll ask what are the plans to bring those numbers at least into compliance where we get to 2.4%. So thank you very much for that work. Let me ask you, you're not a member of the Clemency Board.
I'm not.
No. Okay. The board itself, is there a full complement of the board at this time?
I believe that every position on the board has been filled. So the mayor was able to appoint some positions, and then there were folks from the community. I can get you specifics on that if that's helpful. Yes,
it would be helpful. And we'll also, again, talk with the Chief of Staff about that. And because boards and commissions are in their arena. So thank you very, very much. The work that the board is doing with the Department of Corrections, can you expound a little on that, please?
The work that the Clemency Board is doing with the Department of Corrections?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, since I'm not a member of the board, I don't know the specifics of what they're doing with DOC to sort of build or forge a relationship. I am happy to talk with some of the members of the district task force on jails and justice, some of whom are members of the clemency board, and see if I can't get you a bit more information, if that's helpful.
I think it really would be, yes, I'd like to learn a little more about what is really going on. This is such an important activity, and it's small activities like this that help knit community together. So I'm very, very interested in that. And as you know, our committee, or you're appearing before the committee that is responsible for all types of housing in the city. And that means all kinds of people, and families, and households. And so anything that this committee can do to make households whole, and keep them progressing in the community is very important to us. So any information that you would share with us would be very helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you for coming before us. Thank you very, very much. Now we will move to our government witness. And I want to welcome John Falchecchio, and would like to swear you in. So is John here?
Yes, there we go.
Yep, okay.
Can you see me now?
All right, okay, very good. Good morning.
Good morning.
If you would raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm your testimony and any statements that you make before us today to be truthful and complete?
I do.
All right, thank you. Now we see you. All right, very good. Thank you. And you can begin when you're ready.
Fantastic. Good morning, Chair Bonds, members of the council, residents of the District of Columbia, joining us from all 8 wards. My name is John Falchecchio, and I'm pleased to serve as Chief of Staff to Mayor Muriel Bowser. I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify today on behalf of the mayor and her administration to discuss the operations of the Executive Office of the Mayor. We have marked, I should say, a grim anniversary on March 13th, a year since we activated our Emergency Operations Command for the COVID-19 public health emergency. Since then, EOM has been laser focused on response and recovery efforts related to the pandemic. The role of EOM is to lead on communications and engagement to our residents and our press corps, and it's been critical now during this response and recovery efforts related to COVID-19. EOM oversees the Joint Information Center, or the JIC for short, which reviews, approves, and disseminates all public information related to our response and recovery efforts. Since the start of the public health emergency, the JIC has disseminated thousands of documents and communications, created and maintained the coronavirus.dc.gov website, overseen the preparation and release of all COVID-19 data with DC Health, organized weekly press briefings for the mayor, and translated communications to residents in multiple languages. We also have continued to engage residents and ANCs through our weekly teletown halls and are now focused on assisting our residents to get their vaccination appointments. We're proud of our efforts to take vaccination appointments literally to the streets and to doorsteps through the Senior Vaccine Buddy program, which has led to over 740 residents, seniors, living in wards 7 and 8 to get their appointments for the vaccination. Additionally, our office supports Faith in the Vaccine, which has hosted clinics in wards 5, 7, and 8, and helped more than 500 residents get vaccinated. Our EOM agencies will continue to work tirelessly to ensure that our residents have all the information and resources they need during the public health emergency. I'll now highlight the work done by our various agencies within EOM in the last year. The Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, led by Director Julia Irving, works 24 hours, 7 days a week to address neighborhood concerns, connect residents to government services. This did not change during the pandemic, with the office continuing all its work in all 8 wards, with an additional focus on assisting the EOC efforts, including meal distribution, testing awareness, and now the Senior Vaccine Buddy program. The MOKers continue to respond to all public safety issues and lead community sweeps weekly to address concerns of residents and local businesses, ranging from illegal dumping to graffiti to traffic issues and everything in between. The MOKers are also assisting with the new Building Blocks DC initiative to ensure place-based issues are resolved in the priority blocks. The Communications Office, led by Director Latoya Foster, ensures that our many policy initiatives, services, and public safety advisories are shared with the public through broadcast, print, and social media. As I stated earlier, they've worked tirelessly to ensure our residents have all of the most important information related to the public health emergency, including leading over 140 press conferences in the past year. The Mayor's Correspondence Unit, led by Jim Slattery, helps to ensure constituent letters, emails, and our ANC portal and listserv messages are responded to in a timely manner. The Mayor's Office of Talent and Appointments, led by Director Steve Walker, has been charged with implementing strategies to increase transparency in the appointment process and filling vacant appointment posts. On mota.dc.gov, all executive and accepted positions are posted, and I encourage anyone watching who wants to join our team to please check out the different opportunities available at mota.dc.gov. MOTA has appointed and reappointed 618 board members, board and commission members, I should say, and has held over 35 virtual swearing-in ceremonies. The Mayor's Office of General Counsel, led by Betsy Cavendish, provides legal guidance and counsel as we implement the Mayor's policies and initiatives. OGC, working with MOTA and the Office of Government Ethics and the Office of Open Government, carries out the Mayor's vision of government service as a public trust by providing trainings to hundreds of employees and board and commission members. OGC has also provided ethics advice and serves as the Mayor's liaison between the Mayor's Office, the Council's auditor, and the Inspector General. The Mayor's Office of Policy leads on the Mayor's top policy initiatives, including supporting many of our affordable housing initiatives. MOP successfully secured a $250,000 two-year grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Research by initiating and managing a partnership with Howard University, DHED, and the Office of the Chief Financial Officer to examine affordable housing policy and programs, including IZ, HPAP, and EHAP through a racial equity lens. In addition to supporting these housing efforts, MOP, working with OGC and ABRA, also led on the work that led to the introduction of the Safe Cannabis Act of 2021. The Mayor's Office of Scheduling in Advance, led by Director Jason Fink, has worked to transform how the Mayor engages with residents and organizations during the pandemic. The team has worked to build press conference sites for our public health emergency while ensuring the Mayor can engage in virtual meetings and tapings so that she can connect to residents in all 8 wards. The Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, led by Director Faith Gibson Hubbard, works with our constituency-focused offices. The MOCA cluster includes many critical offices, many of which have already testified. However, I'd like to highlight the work of MOCA and the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture, led by Director Sean Townsend. With the support of these offices, Mayor Bowser provided over $4 million in DC Hope community grants to 86 nonprofits in all 8 wards, as well as $4.4 million in the Streetery Winter Ready grants to help our businesses continue to operate during the cold weather months. In closing, EOM will continue to engage in the response and recovery effort related to the coronavirus, while overseeing and implementing critical initiatives and programs our residents depend on. I'm proud of our agencies for their work during the pandemic and how quickly they have adapted their programs to continue engaging residents in all 8 wards. They've played a critical role in helping us flatten the curve, vaccinate our residents, and all while continuing to advance DC values. Before I finish, I want to thank the community for doing their part in this pandemic and for the many sacrifices they've made. We know Washington, DC is stronger than the pandemic. We'll build back better than before, and we'll come back from the seemingly insurmountable hurdles we face in this moment. Together, we'll build a stronger DC. We're all in this together, and we'll get through it together. Thank you, Chair Bonds, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I can say without a doubt, and from observations through this past year, that your office has been extraordinarily busy, and rightfully so, because the needs of the community most likely escalated during this pandemic. So you're to be commended for all that you were able to accomplish. I wanted to zero in on just a few areas where you might provide us with additional information. You indicated that the vaccine rollout is a recent example of the administration's commitment to prioritizing racial equity. How has this commitment come into fruition regarding the number of vulnerable populations that have been vaccinated thus far? And for the record, can you provide a breakdown of vaccines administered by ethnicity citywide, or do you have those numbers?
So I don't want to try to rattle those off, Madam Chair, because they change regularly. And I do know that what we've worked on is actually a resource so that residents, members of the council, just really members of the public can look to coronavirus.dc.gov, and there's a data page. That data page tells you where we are, not just on the public health metrics, which will help us determine what phase of reopen we're in, but also metrics on testing and vaccination. And it's really important, Councilmember, that I take this opportunity to remind all of our residents to go to vaccinate.dc.gov, and there they can actually pre-register to get their line in the appointment when their turn comes up. What we also know, Councilmember, to your point, is we need more vaccine. We have residents who are interested in being vaccinated, who want to be vaccinated to help us get to that better normal. But what we need now is our federal partners to provide more vaccines so that we can do what you alluded to, which is make sure that our residents who need us most have access to the vaccine. And so that's what we continue to advocate for, but also to show our residents that we want them to get vaccinated. So that's why Mayor Bowser stood up the Senior Vaccine Buddy, which, like I said, go door to door in wards 7 and 8 in order to find our seniors and help them get registered for their appointment.
Well, thank you. That's a very important response that you've given me. But what I'm also asking, and thank you for the advertisement reminding people to sign up so that they can get the vaccine. But what I'm really trying to understand is, as we have this rollout and we're trying to vaccinate individuals as quickly as possible, I know that there was some opportunity, perhaps, I believe, at the convention center, where you were vaccinating, let's say, people who were kind of living on the street, those that refused to come in and seek shelter. And I just was, what kind of numbers are we finding?
Sure. So right now, we've really worked with a community-based model of vaccination. So we want to meet people where they are in order to vaccinate. So our Department of Human Services worked with DC Health to make sure that for our congregate shelters, that we had vaccine that was brought right to those facilities that could actually be used to vaccinate our residents who are experiencing homelessness. We also had, you alluded to, the convention center, and we actually did stand up a high throughput vaccination center there. And we were able to utilize, that was when we first got our Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the first allocation of it. So in one day, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., we were able to actually vaccinate 2,370 people in one day. Now, if we had enough vaccine, we would keep centers like that high throughput center at the convention center open 5 or 7 days a week. But right now, we don't have enough supply of vaccine to keep those operations going. So we continue to move our vaccination opportunities, our access points around the city, again, to meet residents where they are. But we would love to execute more high throughput vaccination centers. We just need more vaccine to do it.
Well, I certainly would like to see more of the convention center process in play. And I think that it's a good process. Let me ask you then about the, all the reports indicate that at least 40% of the supply that we have received has gone to non-DC residents. And I'm wondering, I remember initially there was, I think it was the state of Maryland offered to give us a few doses. Is that relationship still in play where the local jurisdictions understand we perhaps are vaccinating their residents, and are they willing to, are they still sharing with us?
Yeah, so Chair Bonds, back in December, Maryland and Virginia were able to share some of their initial allocation with the District of Columbia, because what we received from the then Trump administration really was not adequate to really even start vaccinating our medical and health professionals. And so the Commonwealth of Virginia and the state of Maryland did share with us some of the vaccine. The reason I don't see that happening again is because they too have more demand than they have supply. They initially did that because we all knew that we had to help our health workers because our residents don't stop at the border. They go to where they need to get the help and the health that they need. So there are residents of DC who regularly go out to Maryland or Virginia for their healthcare and vice versa. So that was very helpful, and we applaud Governors Northam and Hogan for their leadership and coordination with us on that. I think that, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I was going to say, the one thing that we actually see what President Biden has done is provided us a few weeks, not a few weeks, but as a sense of a forecast of what vaccine we'll be able to get so that we can figure out how to allocate it. That actually is critically important. So we know right now, like our Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, we kind of know what those will be for the next few weeks, even though we only find out each week, week to week. We kind of know what they'll be for the next several. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, however, is so new that we got it once. We hope to get it again for next week's deliveries. And so it's a little bit more sporadic than Pfizer and Moderna. And for Pfizer and Moderna, what we hope is that eventually they really, when production ramps up, that we get more of it in DC.
So when the public is looking and hoping that the city will open up so that anyone age 16 and older can receive the vaccine, we just have to continue to hope. We don't have any immediate plans to open the city for vaccination. Is that correct?
Yeah. And that's, like you said, Chair Bonds, that's really because we don't have enough vaccine to do it. So we know that we're several weeks, maybe a couple months out from being able to meet the demand that we currently have.
All right. And so I guess our message to the public is hold on, stay alert, and as soon as we get it, it would be announced, and we can do more.
Absolutely. And we've had such success because our residents and our businesses have really stepped up and followed all the public health guidance. They've worn a mask, they've emphasized social distancing, they emphasize really good hygiene, like washing their hands regularly with soap and water. Some of it sounds like things that your mom told you when you were growing up, like washing your hands regularly with soap and water. And it sounds like we're just being redundant when we say it, but it really does help us flatten the curve. So for now, we really need people to continue to wear their masks, to continue to emphasize social distancing, and to practice good hygiene, like washing your hands regularly.
All right. So I know we've had some problems with the computerized system and the calls as individuals have attempted to make reservations, but the new system, the modifications made to the computer system in particular have proven to be very, very helpful. So many thanks for pushing that along. I know the mayor said, you're going to get this right.
Oh, absolutely. And I got to really applaud the team at DC Health, but also they were assisted by the Assistant City Administrator, Jay Melder, our Chief Technology Officer, Lindsay Parker. We spent long days and nights trying to make sure that the portal, the booking appointment portal, would work as we needed to, as we transition to the pre-registration portal. So at this point, what we're really asking our residents to do is to pre-register and to, if they have been vaccinated or they've pre-registered themselves, really help get others pre-registered as well. Talk to your neighbors who are seniors who may not be able to navigate the internet as well. That is, I'm saying that without any judgment, Chair Bonds, but really that they help their neighbors get pre-registered and check on them about when they'll get their appointment. I think it's really incumbent upon all of us. It's a shared responsibility that we look out for one another and help one another get vaccinated.
Well, I want to certainly thank the health department in particular and Jay for being so receptive to some of the comments that I've shared with them. And some of the strategies they implemented, I can say I put a word in towards those. And so I was really, really happy about that, and want to continue to make sure that people across the city get the vaccine. As you know, we are responsible for housing across the board. And when it comes to vaccine, everyone wants it. And so thank you for those comments this morning. And we won't, we want to ask much more about that. But I have a couple of other questions I just wanted to make sure that I understand. You stated in your pre-hearing answers that since January 2019, the district has reached a goal of 40% of achieving the 36,000 new homes in the city by 2025, with the delivery of 14,404 new housing units. Additionally, you stated that in this same period, 2,028 affordable housing units were also delivered, representing 17% progress towards that goal. How do these percentages reflect the results of the housing equity report and the creation of the area-specific goals for affordable housing?
Yeah, so we actually are making progress across the board. As you mentioned, Chair Bonds, the area that we're making the most progress is our overall housing production. As you said, we're about 40% of our goal, which means we're on track. We need to do more work on our affordable housing goal, where we're about 17%. Those numbers are actually as of January 1, and we'll have some updated numbers each and every month. And so I'll make sure that we continue to share that. What we need to do is focus, as you mentioned, on how we create more affordable housing across all of the District of Columbia. And one of the things that Mayor Bowser did in 2019, as you alluded to, was she made us the first jurisdiction in the country to have affordable housing goals by neighborhood. So what we did was we looked at the 10 planning areas of the District of Columbia, and we set affordable housing goals. Where we need to do more work in creating affordable housing is actually in Rock Creek West, is the place where we have the furthest to go. And that is something that the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development's office, as well as our Office of Planning and our housing agency partners, are working to see how we find opportunities to create income restricted affordable housing within Rock Creek West. For those watching who don't know the 10 planning areas as well, Rock Creek West is almost the same as Ward 3. So that's where we need to focus our attention to move the needle on affordable housing creation.
Well, John, you know that the communities, probably more so the communities in the Rock Creek West, are sort of divided as they look at the goals of the administration, trying to create more affordability or some affordability in those neighborhoods. And I just wonder, how can we get those communities together at the table to see if we can talk it through and have a coming together? I know that we soon at the council will have the comprehensive plan before us. And I hear from people every day on what that should or should not be and the meaning. And so it is very concerning that in this era, as we build back better, so to speak, that I think it would be to the merit of our city to have people come together on these important issues of the day. And I wondered, what kind of thought have you given to pulling everyone together for that one express purpose? And then maybe we can go to some of the other areas and do the same, but certainly Rock Creek West community is very divided.
No, I think you're right about that. And one of the things we were doing in 2019 and as we started 2020 is we had a series of engagements where we brought people together to have a facilitated conversation. So I know you were with us at Wilson High School when we actually brought folks who live in Rock Creek West together to talk about where we were going, but why it was so important to do it. We actually worked with Opportunity Insights, which is based at Harvard University. And they have found that if you have families of the same income living in a high opportunity neighborhood like Rock Creek West, that you will have the families, the children in that family will have a much greater opportunity at success on their careers and life because they lived in that high opportunity area. The way they actually compared that was they looked at families of the same income in high opportunity areas and those who were not had the opportunity to live in a high opportunity area. And they saw that over time, it led to better outcomes for the children academically, in their career, and really in their earnings over the course of their life. So it's important that we do this because people live in DC because they want to be in a place that is diverse and inclusive. So we need to really reach into that and tap that so that people understand that when we want to look at a site like a recreation center or a library and put some housing above it, that we don't do that to take anything away from anyone, but we actually just do it to provide more people the opportunity to live in that neighborhood so that they can help their families be successful. And what's going to happen in that housing is not so different from what happens in the houses adjacent to it. People are going to get up each morning. They're going to think about how they make their life better for themselves and their families. They're going to go to work and school, and they're going to be able to contribute to the rich diversity of DC. So those conversations are important. It's a little bit harder to do it virtually, especially because the feelings are so charged, but it's something we're committed to. One of the things the Office of Planning is going to engage with is residents in Friendship Heights. There's a lot that is changing about Friendship Heights. The strong retail that was once there is in jeopardy. And does that provide opportunity for housing? That's something we want to talk to the community about as we start that planning process.
Well, now you have on your deputy mayor for planning and economic development, and that's good. That's good because really wanted to get to this point where we can have a sense of things. As you know, we have limited amount of DC-owned land, and where we have DC-owned land, are you poised to make happen projects which include residential housing that could go as high as 50% that would be affordable? And we have, you know, a gauge from all the way from 0 to 80% AMI. But is that something that is in the planning in your shop?
So right now, we really are focused on a couple of different projects. There are a couple of solicitations that went out early in 2020, including Langston Slater, which is near your community, Old Malcolm X School, which is in Congress Heights, Hill East, and the Reeve Center. Hill East and the Reeve Center were issued a little bit later, and we just got those proposals back. But in each of them, to your point, emphasizing affordable housing is going to be critically important. We want to make sure that we hit the threshold of at least 30% at each of those sites. And as you know, the biggest driver of how much affordable housing can be produced at any particular site is going to be what the land value provides and what we're able to provide in subsidy. So the Housing Production Trust Fund as a tool, project-based vouchers as a tool. We have to look at all those tools and see how we create more of that, really that income level at that 0 to 30% and up to 50% of AMI, as you alluded to. So we're going to need more resources in order to create more of that deeply affordable housing.
Well, I'm very hopeful that the mayor is listening to your message. I'm sure she is. And I certainly am hearing your message and really ecstatic at the thought that we could have 30% affordability on any of our properties. You know, this is exciting, and we're all for it. I thought I would press the pedal a little bit and say 50%, and maybe I could tease out some real numbers. So thank you very much for that. And I would like to think we would want to enforce that, so to speak, provide guidance as it relates to any property or land that we own throughout the city. I think it could be to our benefit. As you well know, it is important to do 0 to 30% AMI housing, but it also is important to do 31 to 50%. Because as one of my colleagues who heads the workforce committee continues to remind at every turn of the bend, we have persons who are living on minimum wage incomes. And how do we give them the opportunity to be a part of the fiber of our community? You know, we say they're so essential, but somehow they don't have the salaries of, let's see, an IT specialist or manager, which is at 150,000. So how do we have all of us as a part of the District of Columbia, body, so to speak? And so I hope that we can really focus more on making sure that we are giving people at minimum wage an opportunity to live in the city. And as we try to take care of those families that also are struggling, which we call our workforce, housing, which tends to be from 50% to, we say 80%, but it probably even goes to 100% of the AMI because it is a family of four. So I just wanted to thank you for moving the dial. Everyone listening, it's no longer 20%, it is 30%, and that's where we're headed. And that's the message that we can leave this hearing understanding. Also, in your hearing answers, you stated that the Mayor's Office of Policy and the Office of African American Affairs were updating the racial equity report that would outline a toolkit for African American advancement. Can you specify what some of that might entail?
So, Chair Bonds, as you know, there are a plethora of programs for our residents to navigate. And so what we wanted to do and what we did in 2019 was we issued one document that people can find the resources that can help them and their families. So one thing that I know as an example that we highlight in that is our HPAP program, which helps people purchase a home. And in addition to affordable housing, we want to make sure that there's also home ownership opportunities as well. So I know that's something that's important to you. And what that guidebook does is it helps people find the resources that match up with what they are looking to do. And so it's something that we want to update again. One thing that we're thinking about is for this edition of it is that there are a plethora of federal programs that now have been enhanced through the American Rescue Plan. So we want to make sure that our residents take full advantage of all of the different provisions and programs that were enhanced by the American Rescue Plan. So we'll make sure as we update the document from 2019 that we have an eye on how our residents can make sure they avail themselves to those opportunities as well.
Thank you. And you had mentioned earlier the program that the policy office is working with Howard University on the study of the home buying programs. When do you expect to conclude this study, or is there a deadline yet?
Yeah, there'll be real deep work over the course of the year. And actually, I'd like to make sure that if we haven't given your committee a full update on it, I think it'd be good to walk you through kind of what we're aiming to achieve, because really we want to focus in on those home ownership opportunities, as I alluded to, across all of our programs. And that's what this grant will allow us to do, and also see how our programs can, like you alluded to, advance racial equity. So we can make sure that we set up a time for our office to brief your committee about the work ahead.
That would be great. Thank you so much. In question 14, we asked about your top 5 priorities in the order of urgency and of the agency. And you showed us one. You said COVID-19 pandemic. We understand that that's number one. That's for all of us. It's about saving lives. But I was wondering if there's anything that you would like to add to your priorities at this time.
Well, so really it kind of goes back to the last answer as well, is there are a lot of opportunities for our residents and our businesses actually to avail themselves to in order to really stabilize and to help make sure that they both survive, but also thrive after the pandemic and after we get to that better normal. So one of our top priorities, as you alluded to, is our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we need to continue to focus on it. All of that messaging that we talked about earlier about those health protocols are important, and getting our residents pre-registered for the vaccine is critically important. But we also need to make sure that they're thinking about how they can actually help, like I said, stabilize themselves and their families through the various programs that the district will offer, but also that are available through the federal government. And so I would say that our priorities include the response to COVID-19, but we also are focused on our residents really navigating the recovery as well. And so all of our offices, especially our MOCA offices, our Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, have a critical role to play to make sure that residents and various constituencies are able to find the resources that are available to them and take full advantage of them. So that, I would say, is another top priority. And then we have some work to do with the Mayor's Office leads on is DC values. So we know that there obviously has been an real kind of sad and disappointing uptick in sort of resentment, hate towards our Asian American Pacific Islander community. So Director Ben de Guzman has been out trying to talk to all parties, all stakeholders, to make sure that we continue to promote DC values. I know it's something that we share with the council in terms of saying that we need to, stop hate. And that's one of the things that our office continues to work on. And we need to focus on that as well. Even as we try to navigate this, the response and recovery, we need to make sure that we continue to promote DC values. What's changed over the course of this FY is that we've had a change in the administration, and that actually helps us do that work. It kind of we have partners in the federal government to make sure that that are more aligned with DC values, and that is actually critically important. So I know you'll hear from Senior Advisor Perry next. One of the things we want to do is continue to highlight all the great work that we do with the new administration as well. And so our communications team has worked tirelessly throughout the pandemic to make sure residents know how to get tested, how to sign up for the vaccine, but also we're going to focus on how we take all those great provisions of the American Rescue Plan and we make sure that our residents have the opportunity to take full advantage of them.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. What do you anticipate being the time frame for the emergency rental assistance funds coming online?
Yeah, so we hope to actually, and for those watching, this is it started as a resource of $200 million in the stimulus package that passed at the end of 2020. The American Rescue Plan will actually add $152 million, creating a $352 million pool of resources. We've been working with our housing agency partners across our clusters of the government in order to really assess how this tool, this resource, I should say, can be utilized. And so it can be utilized in a couple different ways. It could be utilized for rental assistance, for utility assistance, and also now with this new pool of resources from the American Rescue Plan, can even be used to support mortgage assistance as well. So what we've been working on since the beginning of the year or end of 2020 is how our residents will access this resource. And so for the rental assistance and utility assistance, what we want is residents to be able to go to one place in order to be able to access that resource. So we've been working with the Department of Human Services, OCDO, DHCD in order to really create that platform. And we hope to, by the end of this month, announce to the public how they can access the resources for rental assistance and utility assistance at once. And that resource is something that residents will apply for. Housing providers can apply for it, but they'll need the resident in order to do so. And so it's so important that we all work together once that platform is ready to help our residents, that we all push to make it everyone well aware of it and make sure people are utilizing it as well. So later this month, we hope to come back to you and come back to the public and tell them more about how they can access the emergency rental assistance.
Thank you. Has the mayor given thought to making FY 20 and 21 UI benefits tax-free?
So it's something we've explored with our partners on the council. I know that there was some consternation from the chief financial officer doing it retroactively, but it's something that I think we still need to explore. We also need to explore how we change our tax filing period as well, because the federal government just announced yesterday that federal taxes for individuals will be due on May 17th. So it's something I know that we have to work on with the council, but we're going to make sure that we do that as well.
Well, the council is poised to receive your recommendations, and thank you very much. And I'm sure the will welcome it with bated breath. Thanks. Earlier, we had Representative Ms. Anderson who spoke about the clemency board, and just wanted to understand where we might be with actually the board operating at full steam ahead. I know that according to the testimony that they are currently at phase 2 and have some conversations with our Department of Corrections. So just wonder, where are we on actually having submissions that would go to the White House asking for clemency?
Yes, and so this is a top priority of our Office of General Counsel. So as I mentioned, Betsy Cavendish leads that office and leads on this effort as well. And so the process, as you alluded to, is that the district would receive applications, would review those applications, and then make recommendations ultimately to the President of the United States. What we've had at the beginning of this year is a transition of administrations, which I think is actually going to help us advance this. So we are working with the folks that the person from Center for Court Excellence, as she alluded to, we're working with internally to get everything we need to in order to start accepting applications. But almost as critically important is to make sure we have alignment with the federal administration, with the Department of Justice, in order to make sure that we have a process for them to receive our recommendations from the mayor as well. So our hope, though, is that we can have that alignment completed soon, and that by the end of this summer, that we would be able to start accepting the first applications in order for us to review them, for the mayor to have a chance to assess them, and then for us to start making recommendations to the Department of Justice and the White House.
Okay, thank you. Now let's talk a little bit about building blocks DC. How has the community in Ward 8 responded to the recent announcement that the operations center will be located in, I think it's over in Anacostia, maybe that area of Ward 8?
Yes, Shannon Place. So what Building Blocks will do is have a real focused effort at some of our blocks. So really about 1% of the blocks in the District of Columbia account for 41% of the gun violence that we unfortunately experience. And what the building blocks will do, they're going to be, as you alluded to, stationed at Shannon Place, where the mayor actually also has an office. They're going to be located there, and it'll help them because they're going to be really focused on a lot of the, when I mentioned the 1% of the blocks, a lot of those blocks will be in communities in Ward 8 and Ward 7. And it'll take there's two approaches. There's a people-based approach and a place-based approach. And it'll allow them to connect with those people who we need to make sure that we have more intensive outreach to, and the places that we have to make sure that we change it in a way that helps us increase public safety. So that's what Building Blocks is focused on, both the people and the places, and ensuring that we enhance public safety and really hone in all the resources of the government on those places and on those people that we know need a help in order to really advance and really thrive in DC.
Okay. In the FY 2022 budget, I'm wondering if, which is being formulated, I'm wondering if you have an estimate of how much funding will be allocated to the Building Blocks program. I know the initial 15 million investment was announced last month. Are you thinking that that's adequate for a year, or will we need more, or is that still sort of percolating around?
So Chair Bonds, I've been in this role as the mayor's chief of staff for over 6 years. And one of the ways I've done that is by not getting ahead of the mayor. And so I'd like to help me make sure that we don't do that. But I do know it'll be a priority. The mayor does present the budget to the council on April 22nd. And I know it's a priority for the mayor to make sure that the EOC has the resources that they need in order to continue to make progress on those specific blocks.
Well, thank you. And one of the components of the Building Blocks program that I understand is in play is for the one's office and Cure the Streets to also, and as well as the roving leaders, to play a vital role in the administering of the entire, process. And so I'm really excited about that. We have known all along that we've had the involvement of the other agencies, service providing agencies, but to finally have those that are collecting intelligence, trying to use intelligence, and trying to help young people in particular change the direction of their life for the better, is very rewarding to think that we're going to have a coordinated approach to this. So I want to thank you all for that in your plan. Let me ask you, as we talk about the Building Blocks, what is the plan for having the voice of ANCs and neighborhood leaders incorporated in the plan, and particularly the voice of young people?
So actually, Councilmember, the Bonds, the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, which is our key liaison between the Mayor's Office and our ANC commissioners, actually is part of the Building Blocks EOC. They are regularly in touch, not just to help because the MOKers are excel at making sure that we get all of the service requests that we have in a particular area filled. But they're also helping, like you said, get other interested parties involved in the work. And so I know Director Irving works closely with Building Blocks to make sure that our ANC commissioners, but also our community and civic organization leaders are aware of the work that is being done with Building Blocks, and also offer their suggestion and guidance to make sure that we are efficient, but also successful.
So how would we get neighborhood youth involved, or young people? Maybe an advisory committee? I don't know, but just wondered if there had been given that, if there's any thought as to how we could involve them.
Actually, and it's a good flag on your part. There is going to be an advisory group for the Building Blocks EOC, and having youth voices as part of that is something that I'll make sure I flag with the director.
Thank you. Um, is there, well, we're at a point where I can ask if there is anything else that you would like to add for the record this morning?
No, I think that we've gone over a couple of different issues. I think that we're continuing, like you said, we all want to be to that better normal, but we continue to focus on and really ask our residents to adhere to the public health guidance, to continue to practice good health protocols, and to really help their neighbors get pre-registered for the vaccine, so that everybody is ready when their turn comes up, that they can go and get vaccinated. So critically important. I know we listed that as our top priority, so I have to take this opportunity to reiterate it again here.
Yes, yes, we did list that as our top priority. Just one question about the Condominium Association Advisory Council. I introduced the legislation in 2015. The law was passed, became effective 2017. And I know the council has 8 appointment slots, one for each of the 8 wards. And the mayor has 5. Any movement in the mayor appointing 5 to this body so we can get going, get started?
Okay. Let me, given the breadth of all the boards and commissions we have, I want to make sure I don't give you any information that is not accurate, but what I is ensure that I touch base with Director Walker on it and see where we are in that process. And I'll make sure I reiterate that it's a priority for you, Chair Bonds.
Yes, thank you. That would be very, very helpful. Thank you. Well, Mr. Falchecchio, I thank you very much for your time and attention this morning. I believe we're in good hands, as long as you keep it up.
All right.
As long as you keep it moving forward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Bonds. Have a great day.
You too. Next, we will examine the Office of Senior Advisor. The Senior Advisor is counsel to the mayor on legislative and regulatory initiatives through oversight of the Office of Policy and Legislative Affairs, OPLA, as is fondly referred to, and the Office of Federal and Regional Affairs, and the Office of the Secretary. The office is the office management of the Office of Federal and Regional Affairs is of particular significance because this entity serves as our district government's conduit to other state governments and the federal government. This would be, of course, an important role in any state government, but since the District of Columbia has still not obtained statehood and is subject to congressional review, these challenging responsibilities take on an even greater sensitivity. So I look forward to learning from the senior advisor how her office interfaces with federal partners, particularly as they enact and implement, of course, the COVID relief, but also manages pathways to DC statehood initiative and collaborates with our shadow senators and representative on critical and long-running battle obtaining statehood. And of course, we want to know more about the OPLA, and which has facilitated communications between the executive and the offices of the council throughout my tenure, at least on the council. And so I welcome the opportunity for any oversight about the role that OPLA plays in our government. And so this agency's FY21 approved budget is 3.3 million, and it has contains 20 FTEs. And the agency is headed by Beverly Perry. Ms. Perry, welcome, and I look forward to hearing your testimony today.
Good morning, Chairperson Bond.
Good morning. And we'll swear you in if you raise your right hand. Okay, do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements made today to be truthful and complete?
I do.
Thank you very much.
Again, good morning, Chairperson Bonds, members of the
Morning.
Committee on Housing and Executive Administration, staff, and district residents. For the record, I am Beverly Perry, Senior Advisor to Mayor Muriel Bowser. I am also affectionately known in the Bowser administration as the mother of statehood. I highlight this because since our last oversight hearing, for the first time in history during the 116th Congress, the United States House of Representatives passed the Washington, D.C. Admissions Act. I mentioned statehood at the outset because the momentum is continuing in the 117th Congress. And on Monday, March 22nd, Mayor Bowser and Chairman Mendelson will again appear before the Committee on Oversight and Reform to make the case for DC statehood. We are hopeful that the DC statehood bill will pass the House again. Currently, the DC statehood bill has significant support, 215 co-sponsors in the House and 42 co-sponsors in the Senate. Accordingly, we are very excited for the district and our 712,000 residents. This is indeed a historic time. As senior advisor, I work with and lead a team of directors who are responsible for developing and managing relationships with local, regional, federal, and international partners to benefit our city. The Office of the Senior Advisor includes a cluster of 3 offices: the Office of Federal and Regional Affairs, OFRA, the Office of Policy and Legislative Affairs, OPLA, and the Office of the Secretary. Today, my testimony will focus primarily on OFRA and OPLA, as the Secretary provided testimony before this committee earlier. Together, we all play a major role in executing the agenda of the Bowser administration. Mayor Bowser has an unrelenting vision to create pathways to the middle class for all DC residents by investing in health and wellness, affordable housing, education, infrastructure, public safety. Although the pandemic has caused everybody to re-envision the delivery of services and programs, recent federal funding and sound policies will afford the opportunity to return to the path of prosperity for all. I am happy to appear before you today to discuss the work of the Senior Advisor to execute the vision of the Bowser administration. Now I will briefly discuss the offices under my leadership. OFRA, directed by Eugene Kinlow, is Washington's conduit to the Congress, the White House, federal agencies, neighboring states, and local jurisdictions. The team is comprised of 5 full-time employees, including the director, and despite the pandemic, had a remarkable year. Shortly after the CDC declared COVID-19 to be a pandemic, you might remember Congress appropriated the CARES Act funding to states to assist with enormous costs that cities and states would incur to address the raging health costs, losses to businesses and family income. Unlike typical federal grant programs, however, that accord Washington the same treatment as states, the CARES Act lumped DC with the territories, thereby shortchanging us $755 million. Although it took 10 months OFRA, working with our federal partners, not only recovered the $755 million that we were shortchanged, but secured an additional $1.5 billion with a B in the American Rescue Plan signed by President Biden last week. OFRA assured that Washington, D.C. is considered a state in every title in the American Rescue Plan. And I can tell you, we worked late into the night to make sure of that. Pursuing COVID-19 funding, however, was familiar to OFRA because much of OFRA's activities and achievement relate to the federal budget. OFRA also manages the city relationships with national associations, including the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, African American Mayors Association, and National Association of Counties, and lately the Governors Association. OFRA also worked with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments to advance and promote regional housing strategies, secure support for WMATA, and educate the region's leaders about DC statehood. OFRA works with regional partners, including the governors of Maryland and Virginia, to address some of the region's most challenging environmental, transportation, and indeed COVID-19 issues. OFRA is the lead for the Bowser administration's statehood efforts. The momentum for statehood for Washington, D.C. is at an all-time high. And let me say, for the first time, OFRA has engaged the business community under the auspices of the Federal City Council. And they have commissioned an independent group, Statehood Research DC, which you will hear about within the next few days. And they have done some amazing work. In FY20, the statehood message gained significant momentum as OFRA increased education and awareness activities. For example, OFRA engaged polling and communication professionals to continually refine messages that resonate with people from different regions of the country. OFRA has reached over 30 million people through a national digital and advertising campaign that ran across television, radio, print, and digital outlets, including web and video ads across Google, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Our message educated Americans about the lack of voting representation for the predominantly African-American population residing in DC across targeted markets, including Alaska, Arizona, West Virginia, Maine, Georgia, and Montana. Now I would turn to the office of OPLA. OPLA, directed by Ronan Goldstone, serves as the mayor's primary liaison to the Council of the District of Columbia. I applaud OPLA for maintaining a great relationship with the council and keeping the council informed during this COVID pandemic. With a team of 9 full-time employees, including the director, OPLA manages the mayor's legislative agenda, including contracts, legislation, nominations, and land dispositions. The OPLA team works diligently with the agencies to refine issues, develop hearing testimony, and prepare witnesses for public hearings and roundtables. In addition, OPLA works closely with district agencies to finalize and publish statutorily required reports and rulemakings. OPLA also facilitates the exchange of information and leads advocacy on issues with the council. Finally, as term expires on hundreds of boards, commissions, and cabinet posts, working in coordination with the Mayor's Office of Talent and Appointments, OPLA submits and marshals nominations and appointments. For example, in this fiscal year to date, this council has reviewed 235 nominations submitted by the mayor. As we move forward, OPLA continues to focus on major initiatives that are necessary for the district to meet many of our long-term goals. For example, upcoming initiatives will include working with the council to secure passage of the district's comprehensive plan. A critical component to the district's meeting is affordable housing goals. And measures such as the Mayor's Safe Cannabis Sales Act of 2021 have the potential to play a key role in increasing racial equity in the district. As always, OPLA is committed to continuing to work with the council and executive agencies to provide detailed feedback on legislative proposals and initiatives put forward by the council and advocates, ensuring that the council has all the information it needs to enact robust, sound, and workable legislation. The Office of the Secretary. The Office of the Secretary, led by Kimberly Bassick, who acts in effect as the Secretary of State in the District of Columbia, is the third office in my portfolio. This team of 27 full-time employees serve as the official resource for protocol, legal records, District of Columbia history, and the ceremonial recognition agencies for the public, governments, and the international community. I applaud the success of Secretary Bassick's team. You heard the full details of the performance of her office earlier this month, including the hosting of international delegations. The office is a public records notary and of documents and administrative issuance. In addition, what you heard before, the office of, in addition to what you heard before, the Office of Notary Commissions and the authentications continues to process hundreds of requests weekly and is working towards implementing e-notarization, which I know is very important to you. Chairperson Bonds, the Office of the Senior Advisor is working diligently to achieve the maximum benefit from our federal relationships, to make statehood a reality, to marshal legislation and regulations through the council that reflect the mayor's vision and preserve the history of the city. In closing, I would like to thank you for your leadership and support. We appreciate the opportunity to share our accomplishments and plans and look forward to continuing to work with this committee. This concludes my testimony, and I would be happy to address your questions.
Thank you very, very much for your testimony this morning. And I have to give you a big shout out, although I know that this is not what you were expecting, but thank you very much. A mother of DC statehood. And I hope that the public that's listening and my colleagues will definitely also understand the significant role that you have. I grew up in the city, and I can tell you, having been one of the first appointees to the Compact Commission on Statehood a few decades ago, I'll say. And you know what that means, being that we're cut from the same root, okay?
Right.
I can tell you that we always had a vision, but we never felt that we were getting as close as we are today. And thank you very, very much for your steadfastness. I recall a few years ago when you were beginning the big push, you know, people were like, is it gonna work? Are we gonna get any closer? Well, we are closer today. And thank you immensely, and for your staff and the diligent, behind the scenes work that you must do in order to get us to this point. So just wanted to put that on the record, because
Thank you.
You certainly have earned that. I wanted to ask just a few questions about the, you're doing so much work. I know that you'll give me somewhat of an answer, but I'll have to ask it anyway. Do you believe that you have enough direct support staff for your current portfolio?
Do I believe that we have enough? I do. I do.
You could
I
probably
do.
do with a hand or two more.
And we probably could. We could always use a hand, but I haven't asked the mayor for additional support, so it has not come to that. So, but and I will tell you, especially like this is a big week for us. The flags are going to go up today. The statehood flags, we do we let the city know that we're about to go for a hearing on Monday to make this case again on statehood. And we get engaged in those type of activities. Everyone from EOM pitches in. So, we are a team, and while we sometimes can use extra hands, people down the hall, people volunteer. We work well together.
Thank you for that response. Your office is responsible for developing strategic plans for the mayor to improve the lives of district residents across all 8 wards. How has the office's priorities evolved or changed throughout the course of the pandemic?
Well, our work, throughout the pandemic, the mayor has assembled a team. And while you might attribute that to my office, she has a senior team that convenes, and we meet we have a call every day at 8 o'clock. And how the services have changed. It is the mayor engaging her senior team every day. And we have resolved and changed services and changed our activities based on the times that we're in.
Okay. In your pre-hearing questions, your response indicated that the Office of Federal and Regional Affairs is working to secure federally owned land for the district. I'm hoping any land that is secure will include affordable housing. But how would that office effects lead to the development of additional affordable housing, particularly in wards and neighborhoods where it's lacking?
Well, the way that would occur, let me just say this. My group is charged with securing the land. There is another group that's charged with the development of the land. Well, and I say that jokingly, but you will recall one of the first piece of property that we actually secured was Franklin Park. And we worked on that for like 3 or 4 years. And now Franklin Park is under development, and it's going to be this amazing park. And we saw the plans for it. We used the plans as part of our pitch to secure the park, to say to the Park Service, this is what we want to do. We want to build an urban park in the city. But we don't get into, my team wouldn't get into the details of, all of the development that has occurred. So like, for example, one area that we want to secure is the RFK site. And the mayor is clear that if we secure the site, it'll be for multiple uses, including houses. Our job is to work with the Congress and work with the Department of the Interior, the National Park Service to get the site. And we kind of stop there. You know, we may have to get involved with asking, you know, Jim John or about what the plans would be for the site, because we might have to use that. I mean, the Park Service might require that, some details. So we would just get enough details to make the case that we will be entitled to secure the site.
So in essence, I need not flood you with ideas for affordable housing because it doesn't quite operate in that fashion.
Not quite.
Okay.
Not yet,
Thank you for that
anyway.
response. I would be remiss if I didn't ask about it, so I appreciate your response. Your office entered a memorandum of understanding with UDC, the Institute of Politics, Policy, and History, for $50,000 over a 4-month period. How were these funds utilized and what programs did they support?
I'm not sure if you are familiar with the Institute of Policy, Politics, and History at UDC that's led by former Mayor Sharon Pratt. And she has put on amazing programs, and she has put on podcasts. So what she's doing, she's helping us with our statehood education message. And as a matter of fact, just this week, they have their first TV show on the new Black TV Action Network. So she has, that was a grant to do statehood podcasts, statehood education podcasts.
Very good, thank you. Oh, it does show how expansive the outreach has become for statehood. So thank you very much for that. Could you please outline for the committee and members of the public viewing today OPLA's process for reviewing rule making and how much deference is granted to district agencies in drafting? How long does OPRA review last and how much editing is generally required? And are drafts sent back to the respective agencies for additional revisions? OPLA, in other words, is a strong arm for us at the council. And so we want to understand how this process works.
So I think that might require me to get back to you on outlining that complete process. But this, let me tell you the way, under my supervision, the way I see it. Agencies draft regulations all the time. And those regulations will be, they come through OPLA, and we have a review process by the mayor's senior team. OPLA is in charge of putting the regulation before the senior team. And they may require some edits based on what they know before they are put in the queue for the senior team to review. And then after the senior team reviews it, OPLA manages the process of getting it promulgated or getting it, you know, if it's a bill, getting it to the council, all of that. But they have, they review regulations when they get them based on the code and based on the law that to make sure it's in compliance with what it's supposed to do. And then they put it in the queue before the senior team.
Okay, so the senior team, I am assuming are the deputy mayors. Is that the senior team or?
Yes, the city administrator, the mayor's general counsel, the chief of staff, myself, yes.
Okay, so so there is a formalized process that OPLA goes through in order to complete this function?
Yes, in order to execute its functions, there's a formalized process.
All right, and as it relates to reprogramming, is that a similar process or is it different? And I guess really, does Oprah do that, or is that primarily the role of the mayor's senior team?
I think that process has changed, and I think it is primarily between the budget office and OCFO.
Okay. And that's an old government function, this reprogramming and the process that we see on the council's end, and most of the public doesn't know about it. All they know is that there's $1 for this, $1 for that. Oh, wait, no, the dollar has changed, it's somewhere else. And so I was trying to help us all to understand how that process really works. So any insight you can give about that would be helpful. I mean, I guess it works for the mayor. And if you can help us to understand how that works and what are the conditions that you, or the criteria you use, it would be very helpful.
Okay.
If we can follow up and get some information on that.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that.
Oh, I wanted to ask about in your pre-hearing response, you indicated that you were unable to provide continuing education opportunities in FY20 due to budget cuts and the pandemic. In years prior, what were some of the kinds of programming that was offered?
Well, I think what we offered were some internal meetings with off-site meetings with the groups.
I think a few times I have actually in past years seen you and members of your team moving around outside of the Wilson building
Right.
for meetings and what have you. I recall that very distinctly.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. And I, you know, from a policy perspective, all of the conferences that we attend, you know, our collegiate work with the mayors, National Conference of Mayors, and all of those organizations, League of Cities, you learn a lot about policy, about how government functions and execute different activities. So I see those things as training as well. And as you know, there were no travel or none of those things happened.
Right. Okay. Well, Ms. Perry, I have to ask you, is there anything else you'd like to add to the record? I tried to pull out a bunch of questions, but I think most of what we know about your office, there's a lot of transparency. So, you know, people see a lot of the activities of your office. And so my final question, is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, I always encourage the public to go to our website at statehooddc.gov. It's exciting times for statehood, and our campaign is going to be more active than ever. We are, as we noted that I noted in my testimony, the mayor will be testifying on Monday before the Congress, the mayor and Chairman Mendelson and the CFO. We're hoping, we've already had conversations with the Senate, and we are hoping that the bill will move in the Senate very soon. So it's an exciting time.
All right.
Statehood.dc.gov.
All right. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you.
And thank you.
And we at the council only regret that because of the pandemic, we cannot be there on Monday morning, but we'll be watching.
Okay.
Televised.
We will miss you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel. The mission of the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel is to provide legal counsel to the mayor and the offices of the deputy mayors of the District of Columbia and the District of Columbia executive agencies, with particular attention to coordination of legal support with the agency general counsel and their general counsels and their staffs. The office acts as the primary legal counsel to the mayor, and under the government's legislation functions, as these functions include coordinating the hiring, compensation, training, and resolution of significant personnel related issues for subordinate agency counsel in conjunction with agency directors, providing legal and policy advice to the mayor and the executive branch, resolving interagency legal issues for the mayor, overseeing the representation of agencies in investigative matters before the executive branch of the federal government, Congress, or the Council of the District of Columbia, and supervising outside counsel in matters where the Office of the Attorney General is recused from a matter or otherwise not available. A mouthful. Welcome, Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's very nice to see you today.
You too. In addition, the office advises the mayor and the deputy mayors in connection with the implementation of the major policy initiatives and responsibilities. The agency's FY 2021 approved budget was $1.6 million, and it is an office of 10 FTEs or personnel. And of course, it's headed by Mr. Eugene Adams. Mr. Adams, welcome, and we are looking forward to receiving your testimony this morning. So if you will raise your right hand, and I'll swear you in. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements made today will be truthful and complete?
I do, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members, and staff. My name, as Councilmember Bonds just pointed out, is Eugene Adams, and I'm pleased to testify before you today as the Director of the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel. As you may know, Mayor Bowser selected me for this position following my predecessor's return to the private sector late last summer. I assumed the position right after Labor Day and immediately began working with a very talented and highly skilled group of professionals who have helped me get up to speed quickly so that we could continue to discharge our responsibilities efficiently, knowledgeably, and responsively. Apart from the 3 colleagues that I brought with me from my tenure as the chief judge of the city's Office of Administrative Hearings, our entire team has yet to meet in person because of the pandemic. Despite that, we have all worked together very effectively and collegially in ways that I will discuss in a moment. First, Madam Chair, please allow me to briefly summarize my relevant background. As I mentioned, I was appointed by Mayor Bowser and confirmed by the council as the chief judge for the Office of Administrative Hearings in the summer of 2015. I served in that role until I assumed my current position at the MOLC. And prior to that, I was the Chief Deputy Attorney General for the city's Office of the Attorney General for 13 and a half years, beginning in 2002 and working in that capacity for 5 different attorney generals under all of our mayors since that time. I mention this only because those experiences and the skill sets I developed have given me useful insights into the legal matters pertaining to our city government, its operations, and the interactions between our 3 branches and their subparts. They have also allowed me to view my responsibilities holistically, but with the ability to focus on and address specific issues, challenges, and legal matters as they arise. To that end, my staff and I are fully and enthusiastically committed to providing first-class legal advice and assistance on any and all matters that are brought to us or that are part of our core responsibilities. We have focused on providing real-time responses that are solution-oriented so that our help is actually useful to those we assist. As you may be aware, MOLC is very, very different personnel-wise than it was just a year ago. The former director departed. One deputy director became a magistrate judge in the DC Superior Court, and the other director, who was a dear friend, succumbed to COVID-19 as one of the city's very first fatalities. That circumstance left a chief of staff, 2 newly hired attorneys, a special assistant, and a law clerk to initially look after the office. But notwithstanding, they, along with interim director Betsy Cavendish, stabilized the office and ensured very capable continuity up to and beyond my arrival. I'm pleased to report that we are now fully staffed, executing all of our duties and our ad hoc obligations in the manner the mayor, our cabinet members, subordinate agencies, their lawyers, and other city officials will hopefully value as they seem to thus far. One of the first organizational changes I made, Madam Chair, when I became the director was to create a model that divided the subordinate agencies into 4 clusters, each overseen by one of the 4 associate directors, who in turn report to me and my deputy, Ms. Vanessa Natale. This streamlined approach has helped foster efficiency and communication between the MOLC and general counsels and improved customer engagement. In light of the pandemic, I thought it was important to meet virtually each week with my team to discuss the legal issues each of us is addressing and to exchange ideas, solutions, or interpretations of the law on a wide range of subjects that would naturally benefit from these internal consultations. These meetings have also served as a platform to address issues that are time-sensitive, topical, or more important to the broader operations of the executive branch. For example, the MOLC in early 2021, calendar year 2021, prepared an advice memorandum for the mayor on the legality of requiring city employees to take the COVID vaccination before returning to their workplaces. That advice was obviously important to the EOM as it weighed how and when to make them available to city employees. As a very diverse office where 2/3 of the staff are women at all levels of responsibility, I cannot tell you how pleased I am with the group of professionals that currently staff the office. They're wonderful colleagues and an integral integral part of our current and continued success. I don't want to unnecessarily belabor the scope and nature of the MOLC's duties, Madam Chair, because they are memorialized in our responses to the pre-hearing questions sent to us. But I do want to talk briefly about our priorities and plans. I think our primary responsibility among the several that are top priorities is our obligation to give the EOM, which includes the governmental subparts I enumerated earlier, timely, accurate legal advice when requested or when the need simply arises. We try to be agile and focused as we anticipate what matters or issues will likely involve us. Another important aspect of our duties is to interact with the Office of the Attorney General on matters important to the mayor. Because of this dynamic, we schedule regular monthly meetings with the Office of the Attorney General. These meetings have afforded broader opportunities for communication on a wide range of issues that contribute to collaborative interactions with the overall efficiency of the government. My prior experience at the OAG helps me navigate this relationship to help ensure the EOM's interests are addressed while allowing the OAG to discharge its statutory mandate in this divided executive. The MOLC also recognizes its role with the agency council and offers support, assistance, and guidance as necessary. Many of the general counsels of the subordinate agencies are, along with their staffs, seasoned lawyers who know their agencies and the government well. Because they are usually the subject matter experts, the MOLC's role is often to manage traffic, coordinate responses, and encourage consistency in areas where it's needed. This often includes advice on litigation, assistance with sensitive personnel matters, conveying the views of high-ranking officials, or in rare instances, resolving legal disputes between agencies or between agencies and the Office of the Attorney General. As I noted above, these interactions are initially coordinated through the associate directors at the MOLC, who then have responsibility for a particular cluster of agencies and their lawyers. The MOLC also hosts, as one of its important responsibilities, continuing legal education trainings for the general counsels on a monthly basis, as we are statutorily required to do. We take this responsibility to train these attorneys seriously and monitor credit hours to ensure compliance. At the onset of the pandemic, the trainings were initially paused, but the MOLC was able to pivot to a virtual format, and the transition from in-person to virtual trainings has exponentially increased the number of participants. During that time, the agency also partnered with the Department of Human Resources to hold regular bi-weekly general counsel meetings to address issues of common interest, such as leave management policies, telework requirements, interagency cooperation, and litigation support. And the MOLC also hosts quarterly virtual meetings with the general counsels, their deputies, and the other supervisory attorneys in those offices to focus on matters of particular importance for the management and operations of these offices. And additionally, and in spite of the pandemic, Madam Chair, the MOLC was still able to timely review the performance evaluations of all agency counsel. And in FY 2022, for the first time, will begin implementing formalized evaluations for its own attorneys, a practice which has not historically been undertaken. The MOLC has also successfully advanced its mandated work pertaining to the resolution of FOIA appeals from FOIA requests made at the agency level. We have continued to issue written decisions during COVID-19, and we anticipate, despite the volume, we'll be able to continue this work in a timely manner on behalf of the mayor as required by our law. Finally, I believe that we should try to do our part in the community as well. And so thanks to some very, very thoughtful work by an attorney in the city administrator's office, we're launching a pro bono program for city government lawyers at the subordinate agencies. The goal is for our lawyers to volunteer legal services and information through organizations that help others. And we have already engaged DC Access to Justice about this program and are looking forward to rolling it out in the very near future. The lawyers get continuing legal education credits for their work and will only work in places and subject areas where the services provided are not adverse to the responsibilities they have to the district and are consistent with their ethical requirements. So with that, Madam Chair, I've tried to touch on a number of things to acquaint you with the MOLC since I became the director. So I hope my testimony today and the answers to your questions have provided useful information and allowed some insights that you may need. I am, of course, happy to answer any questions or address any concerns that you have. And I thank you for your time today. And we look forward to a very, very collaborative relationship as we move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Adams, for your testimony. I must say it's extraordinarily thorough and it brings to thought, how do you get all of this done with 10 people? You're a small office.
Well, Madam Chair, they're extraordinarily hardworking. They're all very, very smart, and they're all fully committed to what we do for our mayor and the government.
Excellent, excellent. If I might ask, your 4 clusters, what are the clusters? What do they relate to? The deputy mayor divisions or some other configuration?
No, what we decided to do, Madam Chair, was sort of cluster them primarily according to some commonality in terms of their responsibilities to, either the government or the residents of the District of Columbia. So for example, there's essentially what we call a public safety cluster, there's a social services cluster, and the like. And as I reported earlier, each of those reports to one of the 4 associate directors who then report to my deputy and to me.
Okay.
And if you,
agent.
I apologize, Madam Chair. I was going to say, and if you're interested in that particular breakout, my staff and I would be happy to provide that information, with very, very shortly after this hearing.
All right, we would, because I would be very curious as to where the housing agencies fall. I guess maybe economic development, I'm not sure. And of course, we also have seniors, and we have the property tax appeals commission. So it's
Yes, ma'am.
kind of all over, and the executive office of the mayor and the city administrator. So yes, it would be very, very interesting for us to receive that. Thank you very much. I wanted to, you indicated that as an example of how you address issues that are time sensitive, topical, or important to the broader operations of the executive branch, that you prepare an advice memorandum for the mayor on the legality of requiring city employees to take the COVID vaccination before returning to their workplaces. So is that, when does your memoranda give any clue as to when we might be able to return to the workplace?
It does not, Madam Chair. We were focused on how and when the city could require city employees to take the vaccination before they return to work. Clearly the mayor, the Department of Health, and the remainder of our senior staff are on top of our priority of reopening the government as quickly as we can. And that piece of advice was only to facilitate that guidance.
Okay, all right. So no clue as to when we can return or would be advised to return.
No official date that I'm aware of, Madam Chair, but I can assure you that it's a topic that's foremost in our mayor's mind literally every day. And as Ms. Perry pointed out in her testimony, we meet every Monday and Thursday on a regular basis. We have a status call with the mayor every single morning, and these are among the regular topics on the agenda for her her thought and for the information we have to add to her, to what she already may know.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Adams, for that response. As we move out of the pandemic, or as we think about where the city will be, let's say 3 months down the road, you indicated that your cluster approach is working with the various agency general counsels. Is that primarily the work that
Yes,
they do?
ma'am.
Okay. And has there been a similar kind of discussion in those clusters about or some sort of guidance as how the agencies might approach their work as we're moving out, and of course, as we're out of the pandemic and thinking about the expenditure of the federal rescue dollars, the expenditure of the local budgets? You know, are there some peculiarities that are beginning to be apparent? Just tell me a little bit of what the clusters might be finding or thinking about that they need to be on top of as we move into our new normal.
Of course. I think we've all learned things that have sort of surprised us, you know, both private sector and in the government, Madam Chair, about what work will look like after the pandemic. I think that has, as you well know, has put a premium on the value of telework, whether or not, you know, all city employees, in fact, really need to actually be at their offices every day to discharge the responsibilities that they have. What I think is missing now that will become important as things normalize is sort of the personal face-to-face interactions that we normally have in the workplace. So I know part of our cluster approach, both from the agency side and from the MOLC side, will be personal outreach to actually see our colleagues, meet our colleagues, discuss with them what their needs and priorities are. At the same time, they help their directors plan for what the new normal looks like. So there are a number of considerations that we discuss at quarterly meetings and in other contexts and amongst ourselves, quite honestly, that are focused on those priorities. But I need to point out that they're not discussed in a vacuum. All these, of course, are in a broader context of what the council has in mind, what the mayor and the remainder of the government have in mind. And we're not sure, obviously, what new policies or laws will come from this, but we're fully prepared to implement them and enforce them as necessary.
All right, so I gather then your employees are poised to work around the clock because you're getting information constantly from a variety of sources, the council, the mayor, the agencies themselves. Wow, that's a tall task.
Part of the advantage, Madam Chair, is I've been to government in a number of areas of responsibility for some time now. And so I say that only to say that, you know, people know me. And so what I've tried to convey since I became the new director of the MOLC is a certain amount of accessibility. And I'm one of those people, I'd rather know than not know, so that if there's good news, if there's bad news, if there's news somewhere in the middle, I'd rather know. So please tell me. All of the staff in the MOLC have provided cell phone numbers, email addresses as well. Our work model has become, because we're such a small office, there are only 9 of us right now, and we handle all the work that comes in by phone, by email, by direct request, and as well as those things that we decide we need to involve ourselves in just to anticipate any difficulties for the mayor or the government. But I say that to say only that we we have an understanding that we'll try to be as available to one another as we possibly can to discuss the issues as they arise, because one of the things that is very, very important to us at the MOC is being as responsive as we can. And the reality is, as you well know, I don't do you any good if I call you back 3 weeks later on something that's very, very time sensitive to you. And that's our approach. So we monitor what comes in the door, however it comes in the door. Everybody's conscientious about that. And we make sure somebody is handling it in a timely, responsive way. On those issues that we need to have broader discussions about, either internally or with other parts of the government, we do that right away so that we can circle back and again, provide timely, useful advice.
Mr. Adams, are there any requirements from the various agencies to notify your office when there are, let's say, personnel issues? Is there a requirement? I'm just wondering how that bubbles up.
The short answer to that question, Madam Chair, is yes. We have, as part of our regular communications to the agency council, and part of my personal request and the policy of the office now is to require the agency council to make us aware of these personnel matters, as well as any other matters that they deem important to them for the operations of the agencies, or that are important to their respective directors. The idea is to stay on top of the information and the news that we get so that we can pitch in and help when we can. In addition, I also should add that one of the practices that we resumed when I became the director, Madam Chair, was to require the agency council to submit monthly reports again. And that was a practice that started for a while, and it became sort of attenuated during the pandemic. Now that we are fully operational again, although it's all remote, it's important that the agencies focus on their priorities every month and share those priorities with the MOC, so we can also assist in those situations where it may be needed.
Okay, and what about issues with contracts that an agency may have? It's bubbled up to the general counsel. General counsel kind of disagrees with the way it's constructed before it goes to, contracts and procurement. Are you notified of that as well?
We are certainly some of the major ones where there are genuine concerns. We're aware of those, but obviously, as you well know, those are primarily discussions between the affected agency and the Office of Contracts and Procurement. However, to the extent MOC can assist in those discussions or provide any advice or guidance, we're always happy to and ready to.
But I would assume, since you are asking for monthly reports, it would be a part of your monthly report.
Yes, that's
you would
correct.
See. Yes, okay.
That's correct.
That's what I was thinking.
And in fact, if it's a help to you in the committee, Madam Chair, I'm also happy to submit, along with the 4 clusters that you requested a moment ago, a template of the monthly report form so that you can see the kinds of things that are regularly itemized on those.
That would be very helpful. Thank you very much. And your continuing legal education training, thank you for keeping that moving. That is so important, and I know that the agencies really appreciate that. I wanted to ask you I want to ask about when you had a different hat on,
Sure.
since you were so experienced. The Office of Administrative Hearings, I know that a number of the hearings are housing.
Absolutely.
So, any wisdom that you want to share with the committee regarding your experiences there would be very much appreciated.
Absolutely. I'm sure, I worked with a wonderful group of colleagues there, very, very thoughtful people, very, very committed people. What we learned during my tenure, though, was as we got better and better at what we did. I think both the council and the mayor had more trust in the Office of Administrative Hearings. So therefore, each year that I was there, our statutory responsibilities increased every single year. My point in saying that only now is that now OAH has responsibility to hear matters in close to 50 different subject matter areas. And the size and number of the judges at the Office of Administrative Hearings has not changed in over a decade. So what that means is, although the volume of work has increased, the number of judges hearing those cases has not. That circumstance, along with the challenges the office had pivoting from in-person hearings to remote hearings during the pandemic, has been a challenge, not only for them, but for all agencies that are public facing in some way, shape, or form. I can tell you they all work very, very hard. They take these matters seriously. There is a cluster model that remains at the Office of Administrative Hearings that I initiated at the beginning of my tenure, which also channels specific areas of work into a specific group of judges. And that allows them to focus on that particular work and channel it. And quite honestly, one of the very, very realistic challenges that we've had at OAH, even during my tenure, was trying to get the decisions out as quickly as we possibly could. There's an internal policy there that requires that a final decision be prepared by the judge hearing the case within 120 days of the close of the record, meaning once all the evidence is in, once all the motions have been filed, the judge hearing that particular case has either no more than 120 days to finish that case. But there are certain instances, as you well know, particularly unemployment insurance cases, where the statutory deadline is even shorter than 120 days. And by and large, we've been pretty successful there in meeting those deadlines for the most part. There are occasional hiccups, but I'm extremely excited about my successor in the job has been nominated by the mayor, and I think she has her confirmation hearing before the council next week, before her committee, Councilmember White, and she's extraordinary. And I have no doubt that whatever deficits I left, Madam Chair, she will more than fix.
Okay. Well, I was very curious about the volume of cases and whether or not 50% were housing. At one time, I understood that was the situation. I don't know what it is today, because I guess I'm a proponent of there being a separate process, probably the same process that you left in place with the Administrative Hearings Office, but one that would just focus on housing if there was such a volume of housing cases.
What I'm happy to do, Madam Chair, is I'll certainly convey this to acting Chief Judge Curry, and what I may do, if it's acceptable to you, have her reach out to you, because she can actually provide those statistics and tell you what, among the cases. And we handled, my recollection was during my tenure at OAH, we handled roughly 30,000 new matters every year. And so that means on top of the 30,000 that came in every year, there were still lingering matters from previous fiscal years that we still had to work on. But the lion's share of those were largely DPW notices of infraction, those kinds of tickets for littering and things like that, which was, sort of quick, high volume work. But the remaining 12,000 cases or so were usually more complex and required more time and attention.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much. And I think we have Can you just speak rather quickly about the process for resolving interagency legal issues for the mayor?
Absolutely. It will, part of the agency council's responsibility is to bring those legal disputes, or in some cases, practical disputes that have legal components between agencies, to the attention of the MOC. You know, we call everybody together, we look at what the problem is, we do our own research, we have discussions with the individuals at each agency that may be involved, and an attempt to reach an accord that's consistent with the law and the mayor's priorities. I am not aware of any major ones during my tenure since last fall. And as I stated in my testimony, Madam Chair, there was part of our responsibility is also to sort of mediate any disagreements between agency council or agencies, I'm sorry, and the Office of the Attorney General. Those occasionally arise, they're relatively minor, but the process for addressing those is very much the same. And a lot of times it requires, some patience, some understanding, some fairness, some clarity on what the issues are, and some, broader ideas about how you get from point A to point B in the way that's best for our government and the residents of the District of Columbia.
Okay.
There have not been any intractable problems, I'm happy to say.
Okay. I know that you'll work 24/7 to resolve them if there are.
It's absolutely, ma'am.
Yes. So in final, can you, do you have any top priorities for your office in the coming financial year?
In the upcoming year, one of the things we're going to do that in part is in response to the diversity and inclusion questions that you submitted from your committee. What we're going to do going forward, Madam Chair, because we're sort of an inward-facing agency and don't interact with the public except randomly when we get an inquiry that we either have to respond to or send to another agency. What we're going to do is start tracking some of the metrics that were referenced in your questions going forward among agency council offices. And that plus the pro bono legal advice program that we're going to kick off hopefully a little bit later in the spring. Those will be the two big ones, along with our core responsibilities.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, and one more, Madam Chair, is I think for the first time, one of my colleagues at the office reminded me, we're actually going to evaluate all of the MOC staff annually going forward. Well,
thank you very, very much, and I'm sure that'll be a relief throughout the government. Thank you very much, Mr. Adams, for your testimony and your responsiveness to our questions.
It's my pleasure, Madam Chair, and should you need any, you or your staff need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.
We will be in touch for sure. Thank you so very much.
I will get you the information you've asked for in your follow-up questions. You'll have it within a day or two.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we will turn to the Real Estate Commission. Our Real Estate Commission consists of 9 members appointed by the mayor. 3 members must hold a broker's license, 2 must hold a property manager's license, and 2 must hold a salesperson's license, and 1 must be a licensed attorney, and 1 must be a consumer member. In addition to licensing real estate agents, the commission partners with local agencies and private organizations to provide licenses with continuing education. I have valued Chairman Patreon's leadership over this commission throughout his tenure during the past 3 years. He and I have had many long conversations on local and national trends in real estate practices and on additional ways to ensure that the district's consumers are being served by properly credentialed professionals. As you know, the office is important in the development of real estate prices, as I call it, throughout the region. I think when people hear about real estate, they panic. Some panic thinking that this is an opportunity for my property to go on the market, and others panic by saying, oh my goodness, what will I find in the way of the units that I'm looking for? And so I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Pietransom to talk with us this morning about, I think, yes, we still are in morning, to talk with us this morning about the Real Estate Commission and their accomplishments over the past months. So welcome, sir.
Councilmember, we have a public witness first, Mr. Bates.
I'm sorry?
We have a public witness first, Mr. Bates.
Okay. I don't know if I have that quite like that. I don't. Maybe the pages got mixed up. Maybe that's it. Yes, I do have a page with the public. Yes, the pages got mixed up. Okay, so our public witness testimony, of course, we will receive first. And you say Mr. Bates?
Yes, Councilmember. Mr. Fred Bates with the District of Columbia Association of Realtors has signed up to testify.
Okay. Mr. Bates, would you come forward to give your testimony? And my apologies, I guess my papers are all changed.
No problem.
Welcome. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Fred Bates. I'm the 2021 president of the DC Association of Realtors. DCHA represents over 3,000 realtors and real estate professionals. We voice our support for allowing the usage of online technology for real estate licensing, permanent use of online tools for continued education, and continue to advocate for the restoring of the Real Estate Guarantee and Education Fund. These issues all fall under the purview of the DC Real Estate Commission. First, we ask that the Real Estate Commission to permanently adapt online practices for real estate licensing. During the health and safety emergency, live requirements, as we have seen, present serious problems. The Real Estate Commission has very successfully moved online for continued education courses. We wholly support this. It allows licensees to remain in compliance with vast education requirements and expands educational opportunities for new licensees. We further encourage the online shift towards general real licensing procedures. The current live requirements are cumbersome even during normal times. Our neighboring jurisdictions successfully moved to these practices online. In our discussions with industry professionals, the district should have the ability, the capability to move licensing processes online with newly available technologies. This small step will have a tremendous regulatory benefit. Finally, the Real Estate Guarantee Fund is a consumer protection fund created over 30 years ago by the DC Council to protect the district citizens from unlawful conduct in real estate transactions, including property management companies in which there is a licensee involved. It allows consumers who obtain a judgment, such as fraud against a real estate licensee, to apply for payment for any outstanding judgment the licensee is unable to pay. The fund also provides educational programs to improve the competency of real estate licensees for public benefits. The money for it comes from a portion of the license fee from real estate brokers, salespersons, and property managers must pay. As you're aware, millions of dollars have been swept out of the fund. Most recently, it was completely zeroed out. All $4.6 million paid by licensees during the 2019 budget process. Only after immense advocacy was the statutory minimum restored. Then in fiscal year 2020, DCAR advocated to keep it afloat after it inched down due to new claims. In 2021, the 2021 budget left the fund understandably without further restoration. The fund is specifically meant to ensure consumers have a backstop to any losses they have incurred due to a real estate licensee acting poorly, not for general government purposes. Now we may be faced with another fee, another regulatory barrier. The licensee who's contributed to the fund have done so multiple times in statutory excess, and there would be plenty of monies available had it not been continuously rated. We anticipate working closely with the Real Estate Commission, DCRA, and the council on this issue over the coming weeks. As always, we thank you for the consideration of our views. We are happy to follow up with any additional information and answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bates, for that testimony, very important testimony. If I might say that we will work with you to see how we can restore the guarantee fund. I don't remember the circumstances under which the fund was zeroed out. But I do remember that there was a generous discussion about the guarantee fund and how some monies were being, I'll say, eroding from the account. And so we'll work with you on hopefully restoring the 4.6 million.
Wonderful. We think it's very important.
We'll work with you on that. Your issue of adoption of online real licenses, you mentioned that another jurisdiction in the area does that now. Is that Maryland?
It's Maryland. Yes, they have 100% online licensing where the licenses are kept in a repository and digitally, and the brokerage doesn't have to keep the paper copy of it.
Okay. I don't know what is entailed, but we will inquire Mr. Petrantium when he speaks to see what can be done. So your issue is not e-notary, it is the ability to have the online, but you'd like to have e-notary as well, I can tell.
Yeah, like that also.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the paper licensing is pretty outdated. Everything in Maryland is done through PDF and through email, and the agent really has 100% control of where their license is held. And I think it's a very good system. Okay,
we will work on that, and thank you very much for your testimony this morning. And so sorry again for the confusion.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will now hear from Mr. Petrantium, who will talk with us about the Real Estate Commission. As I mentioned earlier, the commission consists of 9 members appointed by the mayor. 3 members must hold a broker's license, 2 must hold a property manager's license, 2 must hold a salesperson's license, and 1 must be a licensed attorney, and 1 consumer member. In addition, the licensing real estate agents. The commission partners with local agencies and private organizations to provide licensing with licensees with continuing education. And so I'm looking forward today to receiving an update on the property management task force recommendations, which serve as the basis for final rulemaking that was published in December 2020. The rulemaking requires 6 hours of education for all renewing property managers and 3 hours of education for all renewing salespersons and real estate brokers, along with pre-licensure education requirements and other changes. You know, too often I hear concerns from constituents about property management companies that are unresponsive or dismissive about resident complaints. So today we're hoping to monitor how these new education requirements can make an impact over the next 3 fiscal years to improve the quality of life of the residents. And so that is how we're going to proceed. And I will now, Mr. Patreon, if you would raise your right hand. Are you in? Yes, you're in. Okay. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements that you make before us today to be truthful and complete?
I do.
All right. The floor is yours, sir, and welcome.
Thank you, Chairperson Bonds. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you this morning. It's not a problem that Mr. Bates went ahead. He's better looking and in touch with the real estate practices, as you heard. As you know, I'm Frank Petranton, Chair of the District of Columbia Real Estate Commission. I thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Mayor Muriel Bowser at today's hearings and to discuss the accomplishments of the DC Real Estate Commission for the year 2020. I'm currently serving in my 3rd year as chair, and I remain excited about continuing the commission's work to protect the public interest in the challenging time of COVID-19. I'm pleased to work with a dedicated group of commissioners who work tirelessly to achieve our mission, along with a dedicated staff and legal counsel at the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. The Commission's duties include taking disciplinary action against licensees who commit wrongful acts, ensuring that the applicants for licensure are properly qualified, administering continuing education programs for licensees, and overseeing the Real Estate Guarantee and Education Fund. As you mentioned, we have 9 commissioners. Our Yulani Goldstone serves as our attorney member. Edward Downs, our broker member. Joe Borger, property manager member. Elizabeth Blakesley is our additional broker member. Erica Black, salesperson member. David Foster is a salesperson member. Monique Owens, our second property manager member, and Christine Warnicki is our consumer member. Since I testified before you this time last year in June, the commission has remained steadfast in its duties. Although COVID has caused some challenges, the commission has adopted and changed how we hold our meetings. Instead of meeting in person, the commission has held all of its scheduled meetings virtually on the WebEx platform, where the public is invited and has had an opportunity to attend and participate. The virtual meetings have been reasonably successful and have actually accommodated a much larger public audience, since it's easier to join by digital means rather than coming to the commission. We've received positive comments on the delivery of the meetings over the last year, and we hope to expand and continue that. Additionally, the commission has continued to attend the Association of Real Estate License Law Officials, which we call a RELO. We attend the mid-year conference, the annual conference, and we attend committee meetings and task force and work groups as well, all virtually. The virtual meetings have allowed members of the staff and members of the commission to receive the highest quality training in administrative license law and regulations, license education training and enforcement, as well as participate in educational opportunities. Currently, we have 3 members of the DC Real Estate Commission holding Arello Board of Directors positions. And one of our members is chairman of the Fair Housing Committee. Arello committee meetings have also been attended by all members of the staff at the commission as well. The commission has been very active in regulating over 15,000 licensees, real estate brokers, salespersons, and property managers. In fiscal 20 and 21 to date, 1,218 new licensees have been admitted in the broker or salespersons category. 793 new licensees were added to the property management licensees category. This trend continues despite COVID-19, and we're interested in sustaining the practice of issuing licenses. As Mr. Bates had said, we are looking forward to being able to offer all of our licensees the opportunity to get licensed virtually or by a proctored real estate exam. To strengthen our regulatory requirements, as you had mentioned, the Property Management Task Force had recommendations which the Commission accepted and were incorporated in final rulemaking on December 25th of 2020 that included the educational requirements for the practice of property management. The rulemaking requires, as you stated, 6 hours of property management for all renewing property managers and 3 hours of property management for all renewing salespersons and real estate brokers. The continuing education requirements are being implemented in the 2021-2023 renewal cycle, which we are just now beginning. The Commission continues to expand its educational offerings through a public-private partnership with local agencies and private organizations. During FY20, the Commission offered a virtual course on legislative updates in the district, where the licensees learned about the Accounting Clarification for Real Estate Professionals Amendment Act, which allows payment of commissions to registered legal entities in the District of Columbia. Licensees also learned about the new provisions for the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, which was very necessary in the District of Columbia for all of our licensees to learn about. The virtual delivery has resulted in the expansion of licensees completing coursework during COVID-19. The Commission, in conjunction with DCRA, is also sponsoring a series of virtual seminars on historic preservation, again this year in April, as well as courses on fair housing and district legislative update. Compliance issues that we cover. The Commission continues to enforce the Occupation and Professional License Act of 1998, receiving and reviewing complaints from the public. The Commission values the transparency and publishes newsletters, regulatory, and consumer alerts that the public and licensees can view online. The newsletters include disciplinary action taken by the Commission and articles for the education and regulatory requirements of the public. The Commission will continue to dutifully carry out its responsibilities to protect the public, upholding the letter and the spirit of the real estate law. The Commission appreciates the opportunity to share its accomplishments and plans for the future and looks forward to continuing the work with Mayor Bowser and the committee. Thank you for your leadership and support. And that concludes my testimony. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you
Is it
very
your-
much for your testimony. Thank you.
Sure.
I guess we've lost the visual, but the council recently passed legislation to establish the Department of Buildings, which would require structural changes to DCRA, the agency that provides your commission with support staff. Will any of these changes impact your functions?
At this time, I don't think so. We'll certainly let you know if they do.
Yeah, we're imagining it might, because you deal with buildings, and so just the name itself, Department of Buildings, but you are kind of regulatory also. So we're wondering where you might land. And if you would let me know if there's a preference, that might be helpful, since it is a process that's in play at the council.
Yes, ma'am. Be happy to do that.
Okay. Let me ask you, if a tenant were to visit the office of a property manager today, are the licensing standards for the property management visibly posted somewhere, or how would they know what to anticipate?
I think the license, the requirements are posted in most offices. I can only speak for myself with any certainty. But I think more importantly, we probably should make sure that that all tenants know to go to the website to see what opportunities they have to address grievances.
Okay, on grievances, and we will follow up on that. The original idea was that the property manager, if they had gone through your licensing process, that they would actually post something indicating that they're certified and they are meeting a certain standard. So that was the value of the posting, for sure. Is there any way for your commission to follow up with the various, at least those who have gone through your property management training?
To check to see if they are visibly displaying those
Yes.
things. I think there's probably a practical issue here, and that is that we don't want to have any situation where your front office has to have multiple frames of notices. I think we should probably educate the public prior to going into a property manager's office as to what they can expect and how they can address grievances if there are any.
So then, are you thinking that at the time that a individual or resident is looking for an apartment, that there would be some way to inform them? And so you're suggesting by having a notice on a website, they could pick up that information, or in the advertisement for a unit being available, that the advertisement would indicate that the property management is trained and licensed?
We don't have a requirement yet. Maybe I should back up. A lot of the advertising for properties is not done through licensees. It's done through individuals who have in the past perhaps ignored the requirement to be a licensed property manager. So
Okay.
I think there's some education component that needs to be done there. And then I think once we have increased our educational requirements, continuing education requirements, as well as our licensing requirements in the field of property management, that we'll be able to have a much more informed public.
Okay, so we need to look a little closer at what this might mean, and how we get the information out, to the public. Um, During FY 20 and 21 to date, no, you have received 49 complaints. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what are those complaints about? Are they grouped, certain categories? And then I want to ask about the racial equity concerns that have been raised.
Yeah, they are categorized into groups. It's rather large groups. They are misrepresentation, fraud. They involve financial concerns. Some of them involve information that was either neglected or not properly transmitted to them. Um, and I think the categorizations so far have been useful to us, but I don't think there's any one area that really stands out that we need to beef up regulations on, if you will.
Have you received inquiries regarding discrimination or
The
any of
commission
that?
doesn't actually handle discrimination directly. That goes to to a different office that is much more trained and capable in the way of investigating and following up on discrimination. The commission is always concerned and interested in our education opportunities that we cover issues of discrimination, fair housing. Um, a lot of times there are subtle differences, and so the commission would be interested in following up on those and the use of the guarantee fund for those people who have been who have suffered some loss in that area.
All right, so I guess they go to the Office of Human Rights,
Correct.
as our government function. But surely there must be individuals who will say, Real Estate Commission, I'm calling them and I'm going to complain about this nasty personality and what they said to me. And so when you get those kinds of calls, do you automatically refer them to the Office of Human Rights, or do you, in a recording, when they dial the number, say, and if this is, then you should go to the Office of Human Rights?
I don't believe we have a recording that automatically directs them there. The staff has always been very good about explaining the type of complaint that the commission can handle and advising them to go, and if necessary, we will forward it on to the Office of Human Rights.
All right, okay. All right, well, thank you very much for your testimony this morning. And we have a few more questions, but I think we have really run out of time. And so if you don't mind, we may send you a couple of questions that on subject matter that I may have missed this morning.
Happy to respond to those at any time, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so now we will turn to our final agency for testimony today. And I believe we do not have any additional public witnesses. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
All right. Okay. We will turn to the Board of Real Estate Appraisers. The board regulates the practice of real estate appraisals and functions as the state appraiser, certifying the licensing agency under Title 11 of the Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act of 1989. The board also protects consumers by enforcing the District of Columbia real estate license law. The board consists of 5 members appointed by the mayor. 3 are real estate appraisers licensed in the district. 1 is a DC licensed real estate broker, and 1 is a consumer member. During FY 20 and 21 to date, the board has issued approximately 130 licenses for trainees, licensed residential, certified residential, and certified general. No licenses were revoked during this time period, and only 6 complaints were received during this time period. As with most district government entities, the board has worked remotely since the outbreak of COVID-19 virus, including by convening its regular meetings electronically. The board also underwent its biennial audit in January to ensure compliance with the law via an off-site assessment. The board members and staff have also been able to participate in training and continuing education programs remotely. Although the board's primary mission is the issuance and oversight of real estate appraiser licenses, I am looking forward to hearing from Chairman Pompas today. As in years past, her thoughts on recent district government real estate appraisal trends are very important. I particularly am interested in hearing updates on this through a racial equity lens and on any applicable impacts under the COVID-19 virus. Since there are no public witnesses, I want to proceed by asking Ms. Pompas to come forward. And so she is in the room. All right, Ms. Pompas, would you raise your right hand? And do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements that you make before us today to be truthful and complete?
I do.
All right, and so Ms. Pompas, you may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson Bonds, members, the staff of the Committee on Housing and Executive Administration. My name is Tamara K. Pappas, and I have the pleasure of serving as the chairperson of the District of Columbia Board of Real Estate Appraisers. Thank you for inviting me to testify on behalf of Mayor Bowser to discuss the activities and accomplishments of the board during fiscal year 2020. The board's members are Andrew Sullivan, appraiser member, Kiera Passant-Houghton, consumer member, and Marga Wilson, real estate broker member. I would be remiss in my role as chairperson if I failed to compliment the continued support the board staff and legal counsel and the superb job they do at facilitating the many activities of this board. I would also like to take the opportunity on behalf of the board and the Department of Consumer Regulatory Affairs staff to express appreciation to Todd Canterbury, an appraiser who recently resigned after serving on the board for several years. Mr. Canterbury is to be commended for his invaluable and dedicated service to the District of Columbia. He actually moved to Virginia and was accepted onto their board, so he is dearly missed. In light of COVID-19 and its challenges, I would also like to mention that the board continued to successfully hold its meetings virtually via platform WebEx. This virtual platform provided for a greater attendance by the public and appraiser licensees. The board received many favorable comments. Regarding the appraisers for fiscal year 2020, the DC Board of Real Estate Appraisers is uniquely situated as the only professional licensing board within the Office of the Occupational and Professional Licensing Administration that is federally regulated under Title 11 of the Financial Institutes Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act of 1987, commonly referred to as FIREA. Accordingly, the board is mandated by Congress to follow FIREA as amended and its accompanying rules and regulations. Additionally, the purpose of the Appraisal Subcommittee, the ASC, created by FIREA, is to ensure that the federal financial and public policy interests in real estate transactions are to be protected by requiring the real estate appraisers that real estate appraisers utilized in connection with federally related transactions are performed in writing in accordance with uniform standards and by individuals whose competency has been demonstrated and whose professional conduct will be subject to effective supervision. In addition, in general, the ASC oversees the general appraisal regulatory framework and as it relates to federally related transactions as defined by Title 11. During FY20 and FY21, respectively, 81 and 49 new applicants were approved for licensure in 4 categories, including trainee, licensed residential, certified residential, and certified general. Throughout FY20, the board reviewed exposure drafts issued by the Appraisal Foundation Qualifications Board, the Appraisal Standards Board, and the Appraisal Practices Board. The ASC requires that an audit is conducted every 2 years to verify the board is maintaining compliance with FIREA. The board and staff members provide periodic reports to the ASC, as well as timely updates regarding disciplinary actions taken. The disciplinary actions are entered into the national database. The ASC did not conduct the traditional in-person audit due to COVID-19. Instead, it facilitated a state offsite assessment with the staff on January 25 through 28, 2021. The real estate appraisers are the result, real estate appraisals are the result of evaluation of several complex factors. The nature of the work often means that complaints from the public alleging faulty appraisals requires an appraisal expert opinion. To ensure complaints are thoroughly reviewed in a timely manner, the board hires appraisers on a contract basis to review complex complaints. This process has worked well and resulted in clear and comprehensive complaint summary reports submitted for the board's review in a timely manner. The DC Board of Appraisers continues to be successful in maintaining our membership with the Association of Appraiser Regulatory Officials, or ARO. The spring and fall annual conferences bring together top regulatory officials from around the country and keep the board abreast of key developments impacting the board's enforcement of federal regulatory requirements. The ARO annual conference is held in the district each year. However, due to COVID, the conference was held virtually October 19 through 21, 2020. Last year's spring meeting was canceled due to COVID-19. The board was well represented in attendance at these meetings. I was duly reelected at last year's annual conference as a director of ARO, and I am currently serve on the executive committee. I wanted to add here that I was also just asked to be chair of the advisory committee for ARO that will communicate directly with the appraisal qualifications board. So we'll be looking at, we want to have that liaison directly with this subcommittee. The board continues to move forward toward expanding its educational horizons through public-private partnership with numerous local agencies and private organizations. This year in April, the board will continue to co-sponsor historic preservation seminars virtually for all licensed appraisers with the DC Historic Preservation Office, the DC Preservation League, and the DC Real Estate Commission. Attendees will receive 3 hours of continued education credits. These seminars represent a continuing effort by the board to ensure our licensees are knowledgeable about the historic districts and disclosure requirements. On December 3rd, 2019, the board sponsored a continuing education course entitled National Uniform Standards of Appraisal, Professional Appraisal Practice, known as USPAP, for their update course. The course provides updates and any changes to USPAP, which is our national guidebook, rule book, standards that we have to perform by. We will continue to maintain rigorous continuing education requirements for our licensees and offer board sponsors courses for its licensees annually. The board has continued a process to assist our trainees in making sure that their work product and logs are completed correctly, and to help them avoid any rejections by the appraisal board. This is done for the trainee and supervisor without any penalty and is meant as a learning tool. In conclusion, the board members consider our role a great opportunity to serve the citizens of the District of Columbia. We will continue to carry out the board's many responsibilities, including establishing high standards for pre-licensing and continuing education, investigating consumer complaints, penalizing bad actors, complying with federal requirements, and engaging with professional regulatory organizations across the nation. The board thanks Mayor Bowser and this committee for your leadership and support. We appreciate the opportunity to share its accomplishments and plans for continuous improvement, and looks forward to continuing to work with the committee. This concludes my testimony. The board staff and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I will say right now, Chairperson Bonds, one day when we get back together, I will sit down with you and go over this appraisal process. Your staff has been great in communicating with me. One day we will do that. So.
Fine. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, and congratulations to you on your multiple elections to some very important positions. As I guess I can say on behalf of the city, you make us proud.
Well, so, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to represent the district.
Thank you. I have a few questions, but we won't go into the appraisal process because we're going to sit down, have a cup of tea, and go through that. Thank you. I do want to know a little bit about, you indicated that you really, well, let me start from the beginning. Can you outline for us how these outside contractors are selected that assist in reviewing complex complaints?
Sure. We have put out to first of all, they're certified appraisers. In the case of dealing with a commercial complaint or commercial review, I should say, we have contracted a certified general appraiser, and we know their qualifications. They're DC licensed. They know USPAP, which is really what we judge our appraisals that come in, if they come in for a complaint. If the person making the complaint may or may not like the value, very often they don't like the value. But that's not what the review process is about. It's about have they violated the law? Because in appraising, as in many things, there is their opinion. Have they gone about it in the proper process and followed the standards to come about with their conclusions? If they haven't, then we will outline what those problems are. But these appraisers are, we look to our community of people who we know are of good standing, like our general certified appraiser. He's also a USPAP instructor. So, we know he's got the right background and backing for this. So that's really where we look, and we look in our local community for that.
Okay.
And right now we're short. I think we have one or two. We're looking to get another couple more to volunteer, and if they don't volunteer, they get paid, but yes.
And these would be volunteers that could help you when you have a complex complaint.
Yeah, they actually are paid. They are paid for their review.
Okay.
But we still have to get them to come on board with us.
All right. To that end, you indicated you had very few complaints in FY 20 and 21. Is that a national trend, or are we following the national trend, or are we an anomaly?
I think we may have lost Ms. Pappas.
Ms. Pappas is, yeah, I think her screen is stuck. Yeah. Can we get her back, or?
I'll get to work.
Okay.
If there's a phone number, Nate, we can always get her via phone if that's our last resort.
Yeah, that would be fine. That would be fine. Staff, what we can do, we are now, I know that we're over our time frame. So what we can do is submit these additional questions and then publish them for responses
Yes, council member.
so that the public will have them. Maybe something technically wrong, I'm not sure.
Yes. I think that may be what we have to resort to.
Okay, all right.
We will have to submit the remainder of our questions to her in writing and then
All right,
ask
okay.
for her responses unless staff indicates that we're close to getting a hold of her, but it does not look like
Right.
it's going to
So
happen.
therefore, I will announce that this concludes the business for today's hearing. our committee's last one of 2021 performance oversight cycle before we transition into the budget. And I want to thank our government witnesses who participated in today's performance oversight hearing, as well as our public witnesses who testified in this and in previous hearings. We received great insight, I believe, into the performance of the agencies that were able to appear with us today and have a better sense of how we can move forward as we prepare for the budget. There continues to be a lot of hard work, as we all know, and I believe that we have the people in place to get much of the work done. And so therefore, this concludes the hearing for today. With that, the time is 12:23 p.m. on March 18th, 2021, and this meeting is adjourned. And thanks to everyone, my staff, the staff of my colleagues that are members of the committee and other council staff, and to you, the public who have spent time with us through these hearings. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the day.